conversation that looks at this ecosystem we're out and like how much is changing in this moment. And so I'm very, very pleased to invite tonight really our host, and we're going to have some time with you on stage a little bit later as well. But let me invite Jen Oleksiw. She is the Group Vice President and the U.S. Neuroscience and Global Commercial Innovation Officer at Eli Lilly. So Jen, come say a few words.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And we couldn't be more grateful to have you today. We know you're going to be a fabulous host and a lot of fun.
I think it's better to lower
everybody.
expectations and then people are happier.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to see all of you in the room today. I'm really honored to be a part of this. For those of you who I did not get a chance to meet, as Steve said, I'm Jen Oleksiw, and I have had the wonderful privilege of working at Eli Lilly for 25 plus years, and just recently have been able to pick up the responsibility of running our U.S. Neuroscience organization. And, you know, this is such a spectacular venue that we've been able to capitalize on with this energy and creativity from South by Southwest because we need it. We're fighting for these patients and trying to give them more good days because good days matter. Alzheimer's isn't just about the years that are lost, it's these moments, the special meals and conversations and the independence that these families need and deserve. And what a more important moment in time here in Texas to do just that together. What do you think? All right. Well, before I talk about that a little bit more, I too want to just do a quick few shout outs of thanks for being able to pull this together. As Steve did, we got to start with Meg for the fabulous music that we're going to have throughout the session. Of course, to Proper and the wonderful hosts here that have been able to provide the great staff and arrangement that we have here in this room. And of course, Widehall for being able to pull this wonderful group together. But most importantly, I really have to do a shout out to our Lilly Neuroscience customers and all of these amazing connections that we've made together in order to move and make progress on this debilitating disease. We have to be able to do this together. This ecosystem is so difficult and the disease is so tough and so hard to conquer that it's only going to take all of us fighting together to be able to make a difference for these patients. This is our moment. This is our time to do that. We have to be able to have conversations to take charge and get people comfortable talking about brain health. We have to get rid of the stigma that sometimes exists. We really have to be able to lean into getting people feeling comfortable about early diagnosis and taking advantage of some of the new 80 blood tests that are available for them. And if they do get diagnosed early enough, teaching them about the treatments that are available. There has been so much great work that has been done here in Texas. I'm going to save that for the conversation that we're going to have later today. But I just want to say a big thank you for spending time with all of us today, fighting for patients so that they can get a few more good days. Steve, I'm going to turn it back to you, and I look forward to hearing these awesome panelists.
Well, Jen, thank you. Now, a lot of you have been in my stuff before, and I kind of look at all of you as potential panelists. So just beyond, Lauren, my friend who's head of the Nursing Association in Texas, it's just great to see you. So I'm going to come to you, right? And others of you I will too, because I'm going to do. But let's welcome to the stage Gary VanDeaver. He's chair of the Public Health Committee, and we're so honored to have him with us here at the Texas State Legislature, the House. What is it? Texas House of Representatives, right? So, Gary, thank you very much for joining us. And I like to have conversations that lay it out as it is. And I have been just on the Texas front really impressed, candidly, not only in the Alzheimer's space, but the broad kind of awareness that public health really matters. And you've been somebody out there, and you're a Republican in the committee, you're chair of this committee, who's been kind of looking at some of the hits in rural health as well. Would love to just understand what you think is key in your dashboard that we ought to know about moving the needle on better public health, and to the degree you can, to the degree where this Alzheimer's picture and the aging picture in Texas fits into that.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this discussion, and it's a very important discussion. And certainly, I think we have, made some some really good moves here in Texas, and I know you're going to hear from two of my colleagues later, and certainly the work
You guys all hang out
the
together
the work
occasionally?
they've done.
South by Southwest bars.
You know, this is yes, yes, and fortunately here in Texas, for the most part, Republicans and Democrats do work well together, and so we do. We are able to collaborate on some really good work, but you know, of course, you know, the DPRIT is big, but you mentioned, you know, kind of the broader landscape of healthcare, and as a guy who represents a rural district up in Northeast Texas, rural healthcare is certainly something that I have been trying to focus on and trying to get my arms around what it is that we can do to make. You know, we talk about healthcare affordability, but for me, it's really healthcare availability more than affordability. And we you know, we want to do everything we can. We have hospitals closing. I have had 2 hospitals in my district close in the 12 years that I've been in the Texas House. So, you know, the struggle is real. And so, you know, we did pass some legislation this past session that, you know, is with the aim of trying to help these rural hospitals become more sustainable and just able to stay open. And then, of course, broaden the services they're able to offer. So, yeah, you know, mentioned earlier, you know, early diagnosis. And again, for rural Texans, if they're not getting normal checkups, you know, the opportunity, not just Alzheimer's, but early diagnosis for anything is really at risk, because, you know, they don't get the preventative care and the regular checkups that, you know, you might expect and you might see in other areas where healthcare is a little more available.
So what is, I mean, I always ask people like what their human connection to this topic when you kind of look at a new hope for Alzheimer's care and where science is, et cetera. What I'm hearing from you is rising anxiety. You know, people, you know, I know folks that live in rural communities that also see the same thing. And the other dynamic here is we have an aging population. You have a very, and that's going to hit Texas as hard as it is anywhere else, but you're going to be dealing with an aging population and kind of, you know, figuring out how to get this, you know, in the right place. I guess my unfair question to you, I mean, I'm going to tell folks you were the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, you were president of your Lions Club. I don't know which job you liked most, but I am interested in what you sort of see as the needed partnerships to begin addressing that anxiety. And because I've been through this book a few times and I know the ending as far as I see it, the ending is it's stupid not to have more early detection, right? Getting people there is sometimes complicated, right? But how do you see from your experience that building in and changing that culture of maybe it's better not to know?
Yeah, and that is certainly a challenge. And to be honest with you, we've dealt with that in my family, you know, with Alzheimer's and you know, family members who really would rather just not know until it's too late to know, you know, and I get that, but you know, with modern research and especially with what's ahead that we're going to be able to do through DPRIT, you know, we have to change that culture. We have to change that narrative and you know, help people understand the importance of early detection, because it's not there are things that can be done, you know, and I think that's the key. I think for a lot of people out in rural Texas, they think, well, this is, you know, once you're diagnosed, it's just downhill from there, and there's, you know, there's just nothing that can be done for you, and that's just not the case. And so communicating that and getting that information out, but again, just creating a culture of healthcare out in rural Texas is so important. And you know, I think if we can make healthcare more easily available, you know, it's tough. You mentioned aging populations. Rural Texas is aging, and you know, when you have to drive 40, 50 minutes, an hour to see your family practitioner, you know, to see your primary care physician, you're just not going to make that trip any more often than you feel you just have to. And so, you know, anything we can do to bring that healthcare to the patient, is going to be good. Telehealth is something that, we definitely need to expand. We need to look at that and try to expand that. And we've done some work in the Texas legislature to expand telehealth, telemedicine. And that, I think, is going to be one of the keys because of what we experienced in COVID, we do now have more broadband, and we're getting more broadband in rural Texas. And so it's going to open up the opportunities, I think, to connect electronically and receive at least, the initial care through that method, and then as needed, make those trips to actually see the physician.
I am going to get your colleagues here later. I'm going to also go to my friend Lauren in the Nurse Association and get her take on what she wants from you. I mean, because you got to listen to the audience, right? You're working for them. You got to listen to what they want.
Absolutely.
But I also just you have a piece of legislation, House Bill 18, and without losing my audience and getting really wonky, what needle are you trying to move with that? What are you trying to solve with that bill?
Well, I think the primary focus for me on that bill was, let's keep our hospitals open. Let's not lose any more hospitals in rural Texas. But then the other side of that is how can we equip those hospitals? And it's not just about getting nurses and doctors. And we struggle with having enough nurses trained in our districts, in our rural communities, to stay in our rural communities, and we know the importance of that. But House Bill 18 was also about how do we train these hospital administrators to do the things necessary to run an efficient hospital so they're not facing closure. The financial strains, and we get it. Some of these rural hospital administrators wear a lot of hats. They're not just the hospital CEO. They're doing other things throughout the day, and so trying to create consortiums where they can get training on best practices for managing hospitals. So I think I would like to think House Bill 18 really takes a holistic approach to rural hospitals and rural medicine, delivery of rural medicine, and how can we move the needle on that?
I just before I'm going to go to Lauren. Lauren, I'm coming to you. But how many of you are either caregivers or caregivers? Caregivers is a category that usually in my book means we're very dependent on caregivers and we take them for granted, right? And we don't do enough for them. So I'm just interested, how many of you are connected to caregivers or see caregivers in this space of dementia and Alzheimer's? Very good number of people. But I also, the other part of the caregiving, and out there, the nursing and nurses whom I consider real heroes. So Lauren, I want to give you an opportunity to tell Gary what you folks need.
Steve, you didn't prepare me for this. That's quite the loaded question. No, I think the most important.
Tell your audience, give them your big title.
I'm Laura Kinchlow. I'm the Director of Nursing Practice at the Texas Nurses Association. I have the privilege to serve as part of one of the members of the Alzheimer's Disease Partnership through the Department of State Health Services, and lead as a chair for the implementation work group that we are implementing the state plan. If you weren't aware, there is a state plan in Texas to address Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. It's important work. It's good work. And there's a lot of topics and issues that we're continuing to address. And I think one of those is making sure we're all on the same page. We're all doing great work in our institutions and our organizations, but the sharing of data, the supporting of nurses and health professionals to be prepared for those who are impacted by Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, and then making sure that we're all working together for the common good, because there is so much good being done that we should all share that.
Yeah, tell them what you need.
We need more nurses everywhere.
There we go. Gary, quick thoughts? Reactions?
Couldn't agree more.
This was not a setup.
That is not a secret that we need more nurses. But and I think we have made some strides in addressing that. I think we have, and back to some legislation from a couple of sessions ago that probably none of you are even aware of. House Bill 8, the community college funding bill, I think is a great opportunity for community colleges to stand up nursing programs and to enhance nursing, expand nursing programs, even bring it down into the high schools with dual credit. And so, we're looking at everything we can to, and again, for me in rural Texas, it means educating them there and keeping them there. so many times for our health care, we have to send them, or they have to travel somewhere else, urban, suburban areas, to get their training. And we know what happens when they leave, they don't come back. And so we're trying to, at least for me, focus on standing up these programs in rural Texas so that, these practitioners can get their training there and stay there.
Do you have a few minutes you can hang out with us a little bit longer? Because I want to introduce you to someone.
Sure.
Why don't you move over that seat? We're going to do this like a little talk show here. This is the Steve Clemens, Lilly talk show. I want to bring up someone because the reason I'm so excited about this topic and why I've been so committed is I sort of feel all these people who are out there committed to these great topics may or may not understand how science has changed. And even the approach on the approaches on caregiving has changed. So the equilibrium, well, I kind of look at everything as an equilibrium. I never look at, the best outcome. I always look at the best outcome you can get, given everything else, has really changed. So if you look at the science, and one of the things I'm really happy about, because you told me early on, say, hey, I'm not an expert on Alzheimer's, but let's talk about broad public health. I want you to know more about Alzheimer's and where that equilibrium has moved. So I'm going to bring up here Robin Hilsabeck. She's the chief at the Division of Neuropsychology at UT Health San Antonio. Is your district anywhere near San Antonio? No. Okay. Well, maybe you might visit sometime. Robin, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. So you're my science person in this, but I think one of the biggest things for me that's changed, I would love you to kind of talk about it for a moment. We're talking about early detection. I don't know. I just went to have my annual physical, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just the age I just hit. They took like 7 vials of blood, and I'm like, well, what are you going to do with all that blood? And I'm kind of needle averse, so I took a lot of blood. But I know I didn't ask him to get my blood biomarkers on this, which I should have, right? So that's something you can teach me how to do. But there is a process by which people are getting exams, getting physicals. Some of us put it off too much. But I'm interested in what the science has changed in terms of how we look at early detection. And I want to tell everybody, I haven't been on it, you're like an app developer. You're like one of these, you should go to the Web Summit and South by Southwest. But you did it. But tell us about how the science has moved from your perspective in neuroscience and early detection. And I want Gary to hear this.
There's so much. The biomarkers, the blood-based biomarkers are really only the beginning. And I want to say that makes it so much more accessible. Now we're looking at the patterns of the proteins in the blood. So it's not just about one particular thing. Now we're seeing, this might indicate this type of disease process or this type. Everybody knows about Alzheimer's disease, but as this audience, I'm sure, knows there are many other causes of dementia than Alzheimer's disease. What I think is super exciting is now there are a few people looking at dried blood spots. So that you can do at home and mail them in. And so it makes it even more accessible.
So you can be, what's the biggest town in your district?
Texarkana.
You can be at Texarkana and
I
you
used to
can
be at Lubbock.
mail in these blood spots?
Yes. And
Well, that's something I've not heard before.
Well, that's why I'm hoping to spread the news,
Okay,
spread
good.
the
Well,
word.
thank you.
Yes. So the blood-based biomarkers are a big game changer, but there's a lot we don't know still about them. But for example, we don't know how reliable they are over time. In one visit, there may be a low value, and then you come back, and then it's high, and then, we better get you a workup, but then you come back, and it's low. So we still need to do some more work in this area, but it's just so exciting. And it's pretty much established. If you go to a memory clinic and you have a blood-based biomarker that says, your amyloid is elevated, it's a really good indicator that you do have.
So I don't want to necessarily make them feel good, but we have some legislators from across both sides of the aisle here. And what Texas has done, and I think it's gonna probably be have a greater reveal soon. But $3 billion, and I've never heard anything like it. A $3 billion, they've kind of packaged in something called the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, a $3 billion fund. And I'm just interested in you as a scientist on the other side of this. What do you think? What needles are going to be moved with that? Gary, was this something you were involved with? I know you both were, right? Were all three of you supporting this?
We all supported.
Oh, this is...
It came through my committee, and I was involved with the author. But
well, you should have taken more credit for that when we were talking. But I'm just interested in the science side of this, because we got public policy here, legislators, and we have science. We have innovators in the drug space. But what do you feel moves with that resource?
Well, let me thank you, all of you, and the voters of Texas. This is huge. And I mean, everything you've already been talking about. Let's talk about workforce. We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough people out there helping us identify and treat, care for individuals, help caregivers. So developing a workforce, which means training. So there's going to be some monies for training. This is what I understand. And plus just this, advancing the science, of course. We've got to get to a cure. And I really think there is a cure in our future. We have to keep moving and keep trying to educate people in the community. Like you said, this isn't just the way it is. It doesn't have to be this way. And I think getting to, this is huge. It's going to help us get into the communities and spread that word, and education is huge.
Gary, what would you like to ask for from the neuropsychology science and health giving community? Like, she's pretty big in this world. And what would be helpful to you as a policymaker from our science community?
And they did an excellent job as this bill moved through the process. They came and testified in the committee and helped educate us. There are very few true healthcare professionals in the legislature, and we lean on those when they are there. But we depend on the experts to come in and testify and tell us what we need to know to make wise decisions. And so my ask would just be continue to engage in that, because that's so valuable to us. As we consider, because sometimes we pass things with really good intentions with really bad results, and the experts can tell us ahead of time, we knew that was going to be, there was going to be bad results to that.
Do you guys realize how behind you are in the science and understanding it? And I say this, I met this new guy over here who does like chewables, right? I'm into chewables, I'm just putting that out there. But whatever, I sort of think the interesting approach is when you're looking at the question of how do you get legislatures and policy and funding and insurance to catch up with what's possible in science. So I'm just putting it out there. And I sort of feel, as somebody who's had a personal connection to the Alzheimer's story for most of my life because of people in my family, that it's been packed with a lot of inertia for a long time, no fault to anyone, but the science wasn't moving. Now it's moving. Like, I sort of feel like this, if we were to do this, a new hope, I sort of feel like this time is different, right? This time is different. What do you suggest, both of you, in terms of waking up and electrifying a system out there and helping people understand this moment is different?
I think talking to the people in your sphere. It starts with your just talking to the people that you know and helping them understand this is a disease. It doesn't have to be this way. So I think it's a grassroots kind of thing because there's not enough healthcare providers. So we're talking about at our ADRC, Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, we want to train community health workers to get out there and get in the community. They're trusted and they can talk to people at a level they understand. We've got to get to the communities, especially the rural communities.
The answer may be the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute in a way, because you're the first institute of this sort in any major state that I've heard of that we've done. Maybe we've not been everywhere, but I sort of look at that. But I do think there's this opportunity for a strategic leap in the ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And I think the challenge for the legislature is to recognize the science and then embrace the science, because so many times we in the legislature, we see the science and we turn away from it, and go the other direction. And I think there are some areas now that we can see that, we don't trust the science and we're afraid of the science, I guess, in some way. But yes, I think embracing the science, and again, I know there's a lot out there that I certainly am not aware of. And we can't all be experts, and that's why we depend on the experts to help guide us. The important thing is that we as legislators trust the experts and take what they tell us and put it into action.
Okay, we only have like a minute left, but I want to hear about the app. What's the app, and where do I get it? Can I download it? Is it on Apple?
It's still being tested and validated in
Can I have a
primary
beta
care
version?
settings. Yes,
Okay.
if you'd like to do it.
Can anyone here get a beta version?
Everybody
make it-
here can get a
Really?
beta version.
I just got you all a beta version. I did it. I got the beta version. So what does the app do? What does it test? What's it going to tell Gary or any of us, me?
The idea behind it is to assess risk. So look at risk, and then if you are high risk, then we do a brief cognitive assessment. And the measures chosen for this cognitive assessment are known to be early indicators of decline. So it's just using what science has already told us. What are the earliest detectors? We also threw some voice tasks in there because testing is really anxiety provoking for a lot of people. And if we just have you talk and say, tell me a story about something that's important to you, how would that be? So it's a combination of some tests we know work really well, some voice tasks, and using machine learning algorithm. But really, it was more meant for primary care because they're busy, and so this is meant for them to be able to just say, here, can you take this either remotely or on an iPad, and then it sends an email or a message in the chart. Here's what your patient scored.
Yeah, I think part of this story has to be, we're going to have Sara, Damiano in a little bit, and Jen again, is I think the question is, once you get those indications of some cognitive impairment, I think the question is, what can you do with that then in a constructive and positive way, right? And I just want to be honest, and I don't know how you're dealing with it in the world you're dealing with. A lot of people don't want to know. A lot of people worry about their employers knowing. A lot of people worry about stigma around that. How do we turn that into an opportunity and not making people and giving people agency in that, and not just all of a sudden being victims because of the information they're getting?
Well, I think you said it well. It's about brain health. Let's take care of our brain. If we want to take care of the rest of our body, why wouldn't we do that with our brain? That means understanding how it's doing right now and then doing all the things you need to do to lower risk for decline. So it's more, I'm biased obviously, but I think it's about the messaging and the importance of it and starting to help all of our healthcare providers feel like they can talk about it with their patients.
Gary, are you up for trying out the app?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Is your team going to let you? I don't know. We have to do this. And there, I met like 3 of them here, but
It's not going to diagnose.
yeah,
It's going to just
no. But
characterize.
I know that's good. I mean, it's good to lay that out. The
Yeah,
legal
it's just
language at the bottom.
characterizing functioning.
Yeah.
That's it.
Gary, any final thoughts?
No, I just appreciate the conversation, and I think this is what's needed is conversation. I think the more we can talk about this, and the more we can get the word out, and listen to the experts, and I think that's important. And so, thank you for having this conversation and allowing me to be a part of it. And I look forward to seeing DPRIT fully functional. I'm excited. I think that could be one of the best things we've done in a long time in the Texas legislature. So it's real.
So
really
DPRIT,
exciting.
that's the acronym
Yes.
DPRIT.
Yes.
Got it. Dementia Prevention Research.
All of my
That's good. That
colleagues
works.
around the country are jealous. Thank you, Texas.
That's great. Well, let's give a big round of applause to Gary VanDeaver and to Robin Hilsabeck. And I hope you'll stick around for much of it. But Gary, thank you so much. Robin, I hope you'll stick around to your great resource. But let me invite up now 2 other legislators. We have Representative Donna Howard. She's the member of the Appropriations Committee, and Representative Lulu Flores, who's a member of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. We're so honored to have you both here. And thank you. And by the way, Donna, who's our young man here? Who I just sort of think this is all about him.
Yes, this is my +1.
Yeah.
This is my 7th grandson, Baker, who, hey, Baker.
Hi, Baker.
Who actually lives with me full time. I'm a caregiver on the other end of the brain spectrum,
Right.
I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I do think there is kind of one of the things I love about this audience here today in South by Southwest is, I don't know, I mean, the clunky word is intergenerational, but we have people, because this is a social society problem, or challenge, I should say, across it. And I look at it as new opportunities. And I love that Taylor's here because it's really about kind of thinking about how do you carve up a very sculpted, very new future, for people like this. But let me just start out. I mean, DPRIT, which is the newest acronym for me. You both were involved with DPRIT, but what is the status right now? And I know it's a little bit tied up in some stuff, but what do you think it promises to achieve?
Well, I think the real selling point at the legislature was what we've done with CPRIT, with the Cancer Prevention Research Institute, and seeing how successful that model has been. And so I have to give props to Sinfonia Thompson and to Tom Craddock and the people in the House who, I'm pretty old, but they're a little older than I am. And they're the ones that have brought this forward and pushed it. And the fact is that CPRIT has been extremely successful, brought in all kinds of faculty to our state, all kinds of researchers, Nobel Prize winning faculty coming in, created thousands of jobs, provided millions of dollars to those groups that are doing the research that's necessary for cancer, and saw that as just a great opportunity to use that model for dementia research. And as you all have already pointed out, we have an aging population here in Texas, me being one of them. And it is a growing population. We have a large percentage of that population who experience some kind of dementia. So it seemed like this was an opportunity for us to present ourselves as being one of the leading centers of research in regard to dementia. And I just think it's extremely exciting what's going to happen. Unfortunately, things have been tied up with litigation that have nothing really to do with what this is about, just the typical politics we have here in Texas. But it's going to happen.
Lulu, your thoughts on what it might achieve?
Well, I was happy to sign on, and because this disease, this illness is very near and dear to my heart. And it just gives me a lot of hope to see that folks are paying attention. I've done the walks. My sister had it for almost 30 years. My first bosses and mentor at the legislature was had her older sister also developed dementia and Alzheimer's, and so it's something that's been always top of mind with me because it's my oldest sister who was also my godmother and was, taken from us really for a very long time. And so I'm sorry if I'm emotional. That's really why I wanted to be here, to learn more about it and to just say thank you for, having this new opportunity to actually give some hope and some relief to families. So my hope is that we're going to be able to get this done.
If you're comfortable with it, because I know the story of your sister, and so thank you for sharing it with our team. But I also think it's a story in a way, if you're comfortable, that many. It's why I think the video that we started with on brain health is so important, because it comes with a whole mixed set of experiences and emotions as you go through it. And you shared some of that with my team. But I also think, I'm going to just be candid about it. You represent, you work with the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. I always want to make sure that we're talking to every audience out there that needs to hear it. And so we talk about access. We talk about these things that we're talking about. The best science, the best data, the best side of this is making sure we're getting in there. I'm just interested from your perspective on whether we're doing enough on that front.
Well, I think what we mentioned the workforce, and we really need to, the caregivers are so vital, so critical. My sister lived in Mexico, and she had, 24/7 care available to her at her home, which was for us a blessing. But not everybody has that. And so we need to make sure that there are folks who are out there who are caring, loving individuals that are going to, it takes a lot to care for these patients. And so the fact that we need to make sure that not just nurses, we need home health care providers and folks who are, vocational, professionals that can help in the home, because it's a very, very demanding job to care for an individual that has Alzheimer's. So we need to make sure that we're not shrinking our workforces, that we're expanding them, and that we're paying healthcare workers the money they need. They're not. We tried to raise those levels of pay this past session, but we didn't do nearly enough. So we've got to be more open to providing the kind of compensation and attention to filling these kinds of jobs, because they're really important.
Donna, did you know Lauren before?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did. Okay,
I
so
just,
there's
I
kind
just
of
actually swore
there is
her
a
in
secret-
as a
there's a secret nurse
Georgetown-
network.
Oh, Georgetown ISD board member. I just swore her in.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
that is so cool. Well, any other nurses here, by the way? Any other nurses here? No other. So it's very different in different places. When we were in St. Paul, Minnesota, I had a lot of nurses in the room, which was just really made me feel good. But they wanted to know what the science was doing, and we had 3 women that were nurses in the front row. And they were all like 22, 23 years old. So inspiring to see them in this. I kind of look at the question of, Donna, you were a nurse, and you come out of that background and doing. I'm just interested in, how much of this story and new equilibrium needs to be in increasing the literacy and awareness. What do we need to do because what we're trying to do here is educate and get all of you. We all look at you as influencers, and nurses are the best influencers, right? Doctors are great influencers. What can we do better on that front?
Well, I may not be going exactly where you're trying to go here,
okay.
but
I'll
I'm thinking
steer you
about,
back where I want.
Okay, but I'm thinking about what you talked with Gary VanDeaver about in particular. And right now, the workforce issues are just such a huge challenge to anything we try to do here. And we have had a shortage of nurses. I've been in the legislature now 20 years. That's been an issue the entire time I've been there and even beforehand. It continues to be an issue. Rural communities have a huge issue with lack of access, and part of it is because we don't have sufficient providers, but that also includes that we as a state have not been willing to look at autonomous practice of advanced practice nurses who are qualified to provide a lot of the preventive care that we need in these areas. So, there's a lot of approaches that we can take to this. We did this last session. Governor Abbott actually appointed a Texas Healthcare Workforce Task Force that looked at mainly non-physician providers and what we needed to do there. And we had several recommendations that came out of that task force. The legislature luckily passed a lot of those. They have to do with trying to get more the pipeline, as Gary mentioned, in terms of dual credit starting in high school, that sort of thing. Making sure that we have tuition reimbursement programs in place, all the kinds of things you would normally think of that we need to do, getting more clinical sites. But, nurses are kind of the front line of what happens here. And so having nurses, not having enough of them, but having them educated on what we have here, what's going on with the research, because nurses want to be able to provide accurate information about how people can navigate these things, I think could go a long way to making sure that people get the access to the care that they need.
Which is great. But I think the other thing that's really moved for me in this debate, we talked a little bit, is the blood biomarker stuff, the early access, early scanning and assessment. And I guess, and I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, Texas, I think Texas is again one of the states that passed legislation that mandates, for a certain kind of empirical test that it be covered by insurance. Am I correct on that?
I would have to check to make sure. I know we tried to do something with biomarkers and it did not happen.
Lilly friends,
We tried.
It did not? Okay.
What passed? So
Oh yes, please.
coverage requirement. Okay.
There's coverage requirement. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you for that.
I think so. My point is, I went to try and research this because every other state I've been to with my Lilly friends, I've known exactly where they were on this. I got to tell you, it's a little blurry.
It's a blur.
Yeah, it's a
Texas
little
is
blurry.
very blurry.
So my question is, if it's a little blurry
Yeah.
for me,
It's
and
very-
I'm trying to find out,
it's
it's got to
blurry
be
for
blurry
us.
for a lot of other people out there, right? And you're
It's-
legislators, right? So it's blurry.
You would
What
think
ca-
we'd know.
So I guess the question is, when it comes to brain health, and I'm looking for opportunities for your next 6-month project, both of you, shouldn't there be some sort of campaign on brain health to kind of communicate, to kind of de-blur some of the, wouldn't that be an opportunity to build on DPRIT and some of these sorts of things? Because one of the things I'm just finding is the kind of the level of awareness out there is just very uneven among even people who are in the inner sanctum of this, like the two of you. But shouldn't we have some sort of thing that reaches out to different communities to kind of get the demand function up?
Well, preventative care, I know it's difficult with dementia to say or Alzheimer's to prevent it. However, but there are certain things that you can do. And I'm a real believer in starting with kids this young and teaching them about healthy living and nutrition and exercise and all these things that can help make you a healthy whole adult, and make sure that you keep active. And I'm a yoga practitioner. I used to be a runner, but I can't anymore because I've got too many fake joints in me. But I am a swimmer, and just making sure that, and then awareness about these things that you can sort of pass on and encourage your children and even your young adults to really take care of themselves, because it can go a long way. And also education and early detection. There's some other bills that were passed in the legislature that, other folks, like even police officers, to be able to communicate to folks that they find that have these things, and even just the public and early detection. Just my own case, my own sister, we started noticing she was off. She wasn't diagnosed officially until 2000. It was early onset. She was 58 years old when she was officially diagnosed, and they started giving her medication. But she was exhibiting some things, 2 or 3 years before that, and some things were off. And had we had something, in our own
So it was in
knowledge.
year 2000?
2018, 2017, 2000 is when she was actually diagnosed, and she started, the doctor that she saw was the one that started the Alzheimer's Association there in Monterrey, Mexico, and started her. She got some medication that was from Germany or something, and it was, out there. They didn't really know what,
Well, I'm gonna get Jen and Sarah up here in a few minutes and talk about it, because even in those 7 years, when you're talking about 2018 to 8 years now to 2026, like the world has changed. The
it's
topography
changed.
of opportunity in science is dramatically different. That's why I think we're doing this. This is dramatically different to look at what had happened if she were now experiencing this. What might be the different possibilities?
Correct.
Donna?
Yeah. Yes. What?
Oh no.
I'm here.
No, I just said, what about my idea for a brain health, like public awareness, campaign? I'm sort of interested in, how do you de-blur a topic that ought to be less blurry?
One of the things that was mentioned, maybe it was in the video or you said it, but about stigma, and
Yes.
that impacts a lot of, I think, what we do about a lot of things. And my understanding of where we want to go with DPRIT is looking at brain health in general too, and I think that was mentioned a while ago as well, brain health, that there's many forms of dementia, and there's other aspects of brain health that might be, we might be able to do more to intervene and have better outcomes with. I myself have not, my husband did not have dementia, but he had an anoxic brain injury and went through some similar things that I think people have deal with in his year and a half before he died, of the interventions that I had to do with him, the care that I had to give him, the workers that worked with him. It was very similar, I think, to what happens. And so I'm excited about the possibilities of this, looking at brain health from a larger holistic perspective. And I think, I don't know, I think that so many people experience this in their families. I think that we have a lot of possibilities to tell stories that bring people in, that destigmatize what's going on, and that take advantage of all the chewables and whatever else are out there, and make sure that those things become available. We want to commercialize. We want to make sure that we've got the research in place. We commercialize those things that work, and we improve the health.
Stay right here.
people we serve.
She doesn't know I'm going to ask her yet, but I'm going to go to someone who was at our first dinner when we did this in Austin. I also want to tell Gary that in this thing, I'm going to put on your Lions Club hat and your Chamber of Commerce hat. The destigmatization doesn't work unless you have embraced the business community, right? Because in part, you've got to have people feel comfortable enough and sort of feel like, they're going to have, their bosses on their side, right? So this is just another thing. I'm so thrilled you're hearing this. When I come to 2036, it's Tracy, right? At least. So I just want to say, because it's the Texas 2036 Foundation. Texas 2036, which when we were there, I was so impressed with you at our dinner in Austin when we had this a few years ago, because for those of you who don't know it, Texas 2036 is trying to sort of look at all the tidal waves that are coming to hit Texas in various ways, good and problematic. And I remember I was really impressed with what you shared that evening. But as you're listening to all of us, even a couple of years the terrain has changed, but I would love to hear what you think, if there are any blind spots in our conversation that you want to hear more about.
Well, it's too bad that that's your question for me, because that was actually going to kind of be sort of my question for everyone else. But Steve, you used this phrase a few moments ago that I really loved, and I'm going to steal, the topography of opportunity. And I was thinking about this when Representative VanDeaver was speaking about, being able to keep healthcare workers in the community, and something that's partly a workforce issue, but it's also about making sure that people, are able to get the resources they need and want in the communities they live in. And that matters a lot for making sure that, folks with Alzheimer's or folks who are supporting loved ones with Alzheimer's can, get the care that they need and that they want. So I guess something that I'm thinking about, and I'd be curious if anyone else has thoughts about this, what are some of the areas outside of healthcare directly that are especially important for us to keep in mind as we think about what to do to support, a kind of whole of community approach to brain health and aging? Does that make sense?
I love whole of community approaches. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Your thoughts, Lulu?
Well, I mean, education. It comes to me. It's the key, I think, and keeping people in their communities means having opportunities made available for them, and making sure that communities are sustaining their own residents to be able to afford to be able to continue to live in certain communities. It's getting harder and harder for some folks to live in certain areas, and so you're starting to get a drain on the people that can afford to stay in certain places and not move away. So I think, it's all interconnected, right?
And Donna?
Representative VanDeaver was a little more diplomatic about talking about the embrace of science at the legislature. It's very disappointing to me that we do have this very polarized political situation right now, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody with all of this, but the fact is that we do have some competing kind of ideas about things right now that don't always recognize the value of and the input of the scientific community to make policy decisions that are most important for us. I'm concerned about that. I do believe that luckily brain health, because it affects so many of us, despite the letter after our name, our ideologies recognize that this is something that we can come together around. So advocacy is extremely important. Education, as Lulu said, is extremely important. We do a lot of things because of people coming to us and helping us understand what the situation is and what the needs are.
Right.
And your involvement in that, you're making sure that the people that represent you understand what the issues are, is so important. In the House, we have 150 of us, and unfortunately, Gary, he's not coming back. I wish he was. So, we have...
You never know. It might happen. Well,
really? Something I haven't heard? But, there's 150 of us in the House, and we come from all kinds of experiences,
Right.
so we only know so much about a little things here and there, and yet
Right.
we vote on everything. So helping us
Right.
understand is really important.
Well, I just want to thank you. We got two more people to join us
Okay.
here, but I want to thank you both. Representative Donna Howard, member of the Appropriations Committee, and Lulu Flores of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, the Texas House of Representatives. Thank you both for joining us. I could keep going all night on this. this, but I also want to get back to Meg, who's and her tunes. But now we have Sara Damiano, and she is really at the nexus of so much of this. Sara, thank you for joining us. She is She's a bright spark. I mean, the moment you walked in this room, I felt like I'm so glad you're here. She's director of the Office of Aging Services Coordination for the Texas Health and Human Services, I guess, Bureau, the division. So you've heard a lot of the conversation, and I know that you have been mapping and looking at Texas's aging population, right? I'm interested in how you turn the aging population into opportunity and not just problem. How do we get a better frame for begin thinking about that topography of opportunity, where science can come in and help, how we look at the caregiving network out there and bolstering and giving some support. But what are the things that you're trying to move along that line?
Yeah, I think it's such an important topic and conversation. One of the terms we use is like reframing aging. So oftentimes there can be stigmas, which we've talked about, or like this idea of the silver tsunami that's coming, and that's like all very negative. But I do think we need to like flip the perspective and see this as an opportunity and see the innovation and possibilities and like what can we do. So there's over 6 million older adults 60 up in Texas, and that's going to be continuing to grow. It's the fastest growing segment of the population. So that's huge, and we need to figure out how do we prepare for that? How do we plan for that? So it's about like longevity. It's about supporting the families that are providing the care. It's also about like working together as partners and like coordinating better. So something that Texas does, and a lot of states across the US they do is a multi-sector plan for aging. So that's something that we're planning for 2028, and it looks at a cross-sector approach to aging. So it's not just like the typical silos or domains that you think about with aging, such as like healthcare or transportation or housing. They've always been like pretty segmented. So we want to look at this holistically across all these segments and bring in partners that we typically don't have conversations with to understand like what's important and how do we solve this together. And as part of that work, we've already started kicking off our planning. We have work groups and listening sessions, and there's 4 key domains that we're going to be focused on. One of them is access to services. So I've kind of already heard that come up. And as a social worker, like that's always kind of where my mind goes, is how do we help support people to get the care that they need and connect them to those resources. And then the second area is around healthy aging. So that's where brain health fits in. So it's physical health, mental health, brain health. And then the third area is age-friendly health systems and communities. So that's where we look at this ecosystem approach to aging and making sure our infrastructure and our communities are set up for this population. And then the last area is family caregiving, which is one of my favorite topics because they are the backbone of our long-term care system. And they're providing the care for the most vulnerable population. So we need to figure out how do we help support them the best we can.
Do you think there are enough people in the kind of power ecosystem paying attention to your agenda?
I think so. There are like a lot more interests. We've had like stakeholders from like the financial sector, from public corporations, nonprofits. So beyond just what you typically think about when you think about aging. So I think that's exciting. And it brings more partners to the table. I think it is like raises opportunity for more funding, more attention, and more resources so we can work on this together.
I'm going to talk to Jen in a few minutes about what's changed in science, but I'm interested in, as you kind of look at this, some approaches are incremental, some approaches there are strategic leap opportunities. Where do you see strategic leap opportunities?
Ooh, so I do think this is, it's definitely like a long-term vision and a focus, but I do think there is like the strategic leaps in regards to Alzheimer's and dementia. There's a lot of initiative and excitement around there. I know I heard about the state plan on Alzheimer's disease. That is exciting. They have like quite a bit of funding to help support that work. So they do a lot of education. They have trainings available to the workforce. They have a lot of resources available. So that's like pushing the envelope a bit more and faster than I think in some other conditions. So I think seeing like that as a bright light is important. And then just the attention, like we talked about public awareness, we are trying to like push the public awareness and increase conversations that people are having. So it can just be as simple as being more comfortable talking about aging, talking about your wishes for your future healthcare. If you can, you say you get diagnosed early, you can then have those conversations early and kind of get a roadmap for how you see your future healthcare. And that's super important so people are prepared versus like in a crisis further down the line where, there's less opportunities.
Gary VanDeaver has hung out here all night, which is great testament to his interest in this subject. But he talked about the gap in experience and accessibility and hospitals and between the rural area and urban areas. That's really around the whole country, candidly. But I'm interested in how you map that as you're sort of looking at what you're trying, what levers you're trying to move. How do you balance and deal with some of the just change in accessibility, if you will, whether you're living in Austin and downtown Austin or Houston or Dallas versus Texarkana?
Yeah, I think one area that's like getting a lot of attention is the rural health transformation that Texas is going forward with. So I think partnering with other leaders in that space to understand what's going on in their community. We don't want to come to a rural community and act like we understand what's going on. We don't. So we need to understand from the people who live there, what's their experience like, what are their issues, what are their needs, how do we support them? And then figuring out like natural supports in the community. So I do think like the direct care workforce is huge. We need to continue to strengthen that. But how do we strengthen the natural community and families that are existing in that area to help support them, to provide resources? There are some like innovative things you've heard nationally, like partnering with the energy companies because they have access to like this population. They maybe hear about needs earlier, or just kind of like different industries that you wouldn't particularly think about, I think is important. And then related to like rural as a whole, I do think there's a lot of opportunity with the telehealth aspect because we can kind of coordinate care across the state. With there's specialists in one area, they can of course like support with virtual visits and other tools and resources. So
let me just ask
there's
you
a lot of
a
options.
non-wonky final question, which is, how did you become you? I asked this in a way where I've read what you shared with our team. You really care about caregivers, like you're into this topic in a big way. You care about elder care and the elder. I'm just interested how we generate more people wired for that kind of concern, and I'm interested in what that quick journey was that you got there, because it's just really you, and you just got this job that sort of matches who you are and your interests. But I'm interested in how that came to be, because it's not something I run into everywhere.
Oh, I love that. So my like story started probably like in 6th grade. We did like a little career test, and mine was to be a therapist. So, and I remember looking back on my like little resume at that point, it was like, my goal is to help people with their social problems. So I think of course, like usually it comes back to something personal and like having that like desire to help people and then being able to like continue that for the rest of my life. I was like living in a home with my grandmother, so we had an intergenerational family, and I helped provide care to her and then kind of saw the experience across her life course and how that ended up, and just having like a spot for people who have unmet needs and being able to figure out how do we make this better, because there's always a solution. So if you're really excited about improving the world, I think the aging space is like where it's at, because there's just so much opportunity to make a difference, which I appreciate.
Well, I think you're amazing, and it's just
Thank
great
you.
that you spent some time talking to us. Sara Damiano, Director of the Office of Aging Services Coordination at Texas Health and Human Services. Sara, you're going to hang out for a while. You're going to hang out when
Yes.
Meg is spinning some more tunes and everything. So I want everybody to talk with you. Now, last but definitely not least, I want to kind of get a sense of how the topography of this has changed. But please welcome back Jen Oleksiw, who's Group Vice President of U.S. Neuroscience and Global Commercial Innovation Officer at Eli Lilly. Jen, let me just say, we've talked to legislators and policymakers and scientists and advocates out there. I just want to ask you, why do you think these conversations matter?
Yeah, I mean, look at this room today. Look at these conversations, right? What's been so impressive is just how many of you know each other and how we're all collaborating together in order to make a difference in Alzheimer's, because that's what it's going to take in order to get it done. Look, I think these conversations are so important because it is going to take all of us to change the stigma that it's okay that we can talk about brain health, and we can start at the early ages. And I think the other big piece of this equation is that you can import healthy lifestyle choices now. It doesn't take waiting to your certain age. It doesn't take waiting until symptoms start. We know that a good diet, exercise, 8 hours of sleep, control of your stress management, and of course, social engagement all play a factor in living a healthier life. But even more than that, I mean, we want to get the conversation out there that if you are seeing changes in memory or thinking, go see a doctor. Early diagnosis matters. We've got 80 blood tests that are now available and diagnostics that are being improved in order to make sure that you're getting that diagnosis early. And if you do have the disease, we now have treatments that are approved for people to be able to take them.
You know, I'm gonna challenge you to do something since you're so powerful at Lilly. And I want to thank you for the drinks and the food and the sponsors and everything. But I really do kind of think we need a video to show people like me how to tell their doctor, I want that blood biomarker test. I think we need to be kind of guided in that because we don't even know the lingo and how to do it. But that would be a kind of cool thing for you to do. But along those lines, you know, I'm interested, Jen, in your story because, you know, you are hosting today and we thank you for that. But at the same time, I'm interested in the, you know, tell us your story. Why does this matter so much?
You know, so of course, like so many of you, I can pull out an individual story or our neighbor who's going through it right now. But I mean, my story is really the fact that I've been at Eli Lilly for 25 years. And believe it or not, we're going to be celebrating our 150th anniversary on May 10th. And of all the diseases that we've been a part of, producing life-saving insulin, the Salk vaccine, fluoxetine for depression, there's nothing more near and dear to people's hearts in this company than the 35 years of fighting Alzheimer's. I've been here for 25 of them. I've seen it all. The stories that we're going out trying to collect, those patients that are reaching back out to us, the folks that are so desperate to be part of the clinical trials, the families that are coming to us and telling us, do you have any idea what it's like to take care of somebody going through this every single day and everything that I feel like I'm losing? And then, of course, the doctors and the nurses that are already overworked. It's difficult to diagnose. And even with the treatments available, they still need more. And so this is why I do what I do every day. I've been super close to neuroscience for all 25 years, and I'm super fortunate to be able to be responsible for it in the US.
Can you give us a very quick snapshot of the research that's going into, because I think a lot of our discussion is reactive to symptoms. What about being proactive when symptoms aren't necessarily there? What's the research in that space?
Yeah, so, you know, we always say that we are very excited about the advancements that we've made in medicine. We are far from satisfied. So we have so many different clinical trials that are running right now in order to see if we can actually make a difference before somebody has symptoms, but they exhibit the pathology and the risk factors that state that they may get Alzheimer's disease. Now, we don't know what those results are yet, but we know we're pushing for more, for something better, and we're not going to give up until we find a cure for Alzheimer's.
We got Gary, Donna, Lulu, and a bunch of voters for them. Unfortunately, I don't know if they're actually voting for them, but voting for the blob of the political order here. You know, but I, you know, and I mean it in a very complimentary way. I live in D.C. But I'm interested in, you know, what you see, what thrills you, if anything, what you sort of see as challenges as well. But what do you see are the great opportunities to build on in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, wow, I've been blown away by my time in Texas and everything I've learned from the folks that work here in Eli Lilly, but from listening to all of you today. I think you've made incredible strides in helping improve the AD ecosystem. Expansion of the infusion centers, and I can talk about more of those particular changes, but I think what's even more special is the policy changes that you've made. I wish we could replicate that across the country at the national and the state levels in order for everybody to be going after having research funds available to make a difference inside this disease, hospital sustainability, I'm now adding more nurses to our fight for this moving forward. But I mean, you have made incredible progress, and I think that this is, something that we can learn from and hopefully share with other states in order to make a difference in this disease. I would also say, we look forward to working with you on some of the problems that you guys have talked about. Getting to earlier diagnosis, ensuring there's enough nurses and primary care doctors that are educated and knowledgeable to detect this disease early, and any other barriers that exist, and we know there's many of them, but I've been very impressed with everything that I've seen and look forward to working with you to hopefully replicate this to other places.
And so finally, I have one final, I always have a plan, and don't necessarily have Lilly support in this, but I have a plan for all of you. And I do think that what's happening here in Texas is so impressive, and I'm really interested in the deep print. I really loved the candor about public health and where it needs to be and the kind of accessibility. I mean, this is a real conversation, so thank you all. But I think we ought to raise some of this stuff to the national level. I think we ought to do this in video. We ought to take advantage of Zoom.
Yes.
I hung out with the CEO of Zoom. I'm a DC type, so I name drop, but hung out with the
That's okay.
CEO of Zoom the other day, and I said, he deserves like a Nobel Prize for something, because creating community, kind of having an opportunity for online connection, but raising these stories, telling these stories,
right.
having Gary and Donna and Lulu and whatever coming in, and others that are in this, our friend here in the state public health, I'm going to get it wrong, but all the good stuff you're doing, we ought to basically find a way to elevate some of that. So my question to you finally, and then I know we're going to have a little closing video on brain health for this, and then we can go back to our friend Meg. Meg is
That's
still
right.
there, right?
There's
Megtronic.
Meg.
And go back to our South by Southwest conversations. But thank you for stimulating such an important conversation. But what would you see us doing?
Sure.
What would you like us to do by way of continuing to work together?
Yeah, so I do think that one of the biggest things that we can all lean in together, and this really will tee up the video that you're about to see, is that brain health matters. This is not a Texas problem. It's not a U.S. problem. It's a global problem. And this is something that Eli Lilly is really passionate and committed to. We started this last year by launching a global campaign, really targeting adults that are 55 and older and getting them comfortable about talking about brain health. Having them really take 3 actions. And you guys talked a lot about this already. Having ongoing conversations with your doctor, doing it earlier in the process. Don't be afraid, second, to actually do some of these cognitive assessments and brain games along the way. Can't wait to get the app. And then third, this is about an opportunity that if you are experiencing some types of symptoms or your loved ones are noticing that, go into the doctor. And this is something that we need to bring attention to, and I have to do it at a global level. So I hope you'll see this is just one step at trying to do this. It does have a partner with us on the way, because as much as everybody's fighting for it in Texas and as much as everybody's fighting for it at Eli Lilly, we do have to employ everybody in order to get it done. So I hope you'll enjoy.
Thank you. Let's watch the video. Brag, as I was at the Oscars last night, and I did not see Julianne Moore, but I was with Elton John and Dua Lipa, who I've now love her music. I didn't know it a couple of weeks ago because I'm culturally illiterate. But it was basically for the Elton John Oscars party, HIV Prevention Foundation. And it's just another ecosystem of great people who've moved the needle and kind of look at what's happened in 30 years. It's like when somebody was talking about cancer.
That's right.
And what's possible. So I just want to commend you for, this is really something that can be dynamic and really change people's lives.
And people are raising their hands from all walks and wanting to get this conversation in the mainstream social network.
And Julianne Moore really cares about this.
We really need to leverage them in order to amplify the voice and get people to care about brain health, because more good days matter. Thanks, everybody.
So a big round of applause for Jen Oleksiw of Eli Lilly. Thank you all so much. And I'm going to encourage you, hang out, have some drinks, listen to Meg, and thanks so much for joining us. And we can all talk amongst ourselves about these important topics. Thanks so much.